The Zhuangzi and Its Impact by Victor Mair. Worldview. Aside from the numerous and difficult compositional, textual, and transmissive complications attendant upon the Zhuangzi, if we accept the received text as a whole, it does present us with an analyzable and interpretable body of thought that we identify with the corporate personality who is known as Master Zhuang, and whose dominant component, at least in spirit, was probably Zhuangzhou. As such, the Zhuangzi presents certain key concepts which are widely recognized as being characteristic of the work. Among these, the most outstanding are spontaneity, the perfected person or true man, heart-mind, fasting of the heart-mind, sitting and forgetting, and the great clod. It is interesting that the classical term ziran, literally self-so, has come to mean nature in modern Mandarin. In the Zhuangzi, it signifies doing, being, what comes naturally, i.e. following one's inner nature or character. The perfected is the ideal person who practices the truth and is perfectly in accord with the way. One of the most important means of becoming a perfected person is to calm and empty the heart-mind, the human organ of sentience, by fasting, and thus making it as clean and pure as a mirror which reflects everything but absorbs nothing. Cultivation of the heart-mind is accomplished through sitting and forgetting, which is clearly a type of meditation. All of this is directed toward the achievement of harmony with the great clod, a metaphor for the universe, the sum total of reality. Other prominent topics in the Zhuangzi include the relativity of language, paradoxes and riddles, the nature of knowing, skepticism concerning the efficacy of pure logic, letting things be, non-interference, heaven and humanity, dreaming, and reality, life and death, activity and tranquility, and supreme detachment. Taken together, these interrelated themes in the Zhuangzi contribute to the special appeal that it has held for readers during the last 2 millennia. Main chapters. Carefree wandering. To specify the main aspects of Master Zhuang's thought, one may use several rubrics associated with important chapters of the Zhuangzi. The first chapter, Carefree Wandering, opens the door to comprehending the whole of Master Zhuang's outlook on life. In it, he espouses that freedom attained by forgetting reality and transcending material objects. He uses the parable of the gigantic pung bird and the tiny dove along with other metaphors to show that everything is confined by material limitations and is thus prevented from attaining complete freedom. Only the ultimate man, Jiren, can attain unbounded freedom by being oblivious to achievement and fame, by not distinguishing between self and other, and by entering a realm of creative unconventionality. In this chapter we are introduced to the concept of wandering, yu, the key to understanding the spirit of the entire book. The Great Teacher. Another important chapter is the 6th, the Great Ancestral Teacher. This chapter presents a worldview centered on the concept of the Tao. The Tao, way, or track, is the source of all phenomena in the universe. It existed before heaven and earth, but cannot be described as possessing action or form. If one wants to practice and attain it, nothing is better than to model oneself after the perfected of old who were its embodiment. The chief qualities of these perfected persons are that they were unmindful of moral strictures and unconstrained by knowledge, had few desires, were unconcerned about life and death, and merged with nature. The Equality of Things. The second chapter, on the equality of things, has received the lion's share of attention in recent decades, particularly from philosophers. It complements the ontological, experiential concerns of the 6th chapter by offering a theory of knowledge according to which all phenomena are co-equal. By negating the distinction between this and that, between yes and no, it offers a notion of what might be called absolute relativity. In place of dualism and distinctions, this chapter holds that all entities return to the Tao, which has no beginning or end. The remaining chapters of the inner chapters deal with such subjects as how to nourish life, Chapter 3, how to get on in the world, Chapter 4, what to do about the exigencies of politics, Chapter 7, and how to cope with socially determined morality and materially conditioned reality by reverting to primal simplicity. Of the outer chapters, the most magnificent in terms of conception and literary execution is Autumn Floods, Chapter 18. The ideas expressed in it are close to the thought of the first 2 chapters. Beginning in the form of a lengthy dialogue between the Earl of the Yellow River and the Overlord of the Northern Sea, it holds that, as viewed in the Tao, big and little, honor and dishonor, life and death, right and wrong are all relative. Not only are all things relative, they are constantly evolving and transforming. Based on this principle, one should follow nature, acquiesce in fate, and avoid all striving, especially for fame or rank. Only then can one be free. Of the miscellaneous chapters, the most consequential is the final one, which is a tour de force survey of the main schools of thought during the Warring States period. This chapter can safely be regarded as the first treatise on the history of Chinese philosophy. Its author believed that, in high antiquity, the arts of the Tao were unified, but they diverged and split when competing thinkers emphasized various aspects of the Tao. The author grants that each of them, including Zhuangzi, captured a part of the arts of the Tao. It is significant that in his discussion of Zhuangzi, translated earlier, he stresses 2 salient qualities: mastery of language and ludic propensity. Relation to the Tao Te Ching. The Tao Te Ching and the Zhuangzi have been intimately linked since the Han period, though notably not before. For example, the Yao Lue, outline of essentials of the Huainanzi, mentions Lao Zhuang, Ji, Shu, or the arts of Lao Tzu and Zhuangzi. Similarly, in his biography, Sima Qian is at pains to declare twice that Zhuangzhou's primary purpose was to amplify the teachings of the old master. This linkage became especially prevalent in the Six Dynasties period and has remained in use as a common expression up to the present day. For example, Lao Zhuang, Si Xiang, or the thought of Lao Tzu and Zhuangzi. But there has at the same time been a faction of adherents to this school of thought who preferred to put Master Zhuang ahead of the old masters. Ji Kang, in his Yu Shan Zhu Yuan Zhui Jiao Shu, letter breaking off relations with Shan Zhu Yuan, says that he relied equally on the works of both Zhuangzi and Lao Tzu. Guo Xiang, in his commentary to the first chapter, states that this is the talk of Zhuangzi and Lao Tzu. Sun Xiang of the Jin, in his Lao Tzu Yiwen Fan Shun, counter-questions to inquiries on doubts concerning the old master, states that someone inquired about Zhuangzi and Lao Tzu. Liu Xie, 465-520, in the Ming Shi, elucidating poetry chapter of his Wen Xin Diao Long, the literary mind and ornate rhetoric, insists that only after Zhuangzi and Lao Tzu receded did landscape flourish. And Yan Ji Tui, 531-590, in the Mian Shui Pian, exhortation to study chapter of his Yanxi Jia Shun, Mr. Yan's family instructions, ranked the Zhuangzi first among the San Xuan, or 3 mystery texts, i.e. Zhuangzi, Tao Te Ching, and Yi Jing. Practice. Daoist texts. Master Zhuang served as an inspiration for a wide variety of Daoist practitioners. For instance, we may examine the anonymous Zhuangzhou Qi Zhui Jie explanation of Zhuangzhou's esoteric formula on energy, which is based on the final 1-sentence section of Chapter 3. Resins may be consumed when they are used for fuel, but the fire they transmit knows no end. Just as fire relies on fuel to be transmitted, so is life extended by qi, vital energy, breath, and by drawing in qi, one may nurture life and extend longevity. Master Zhuang may have made light of those who wished to prolong the physical body, but that did not prevent them from seeking guidance in the book which bears his name. The Qi Feng Sui. The Ming period Daoist Zhou Lu Jing, also known as Mei Dian Dao Ren, or the Daoist confounded by plum blossoms, composed an illustrated work of ascetic cultivation in 3 scrolls entitled Qi Feng Sui, Marrow of the Red Phoenix, edited in the Zongshu Jicheng Chubian, compilation of Collectanea, first series. One of the key portions of this text is the 46 postures of the Red Phoenix Marrow, a form of inner alchemical sleep exercises, the 9th of which is Zhuangzhou's butterfly dream. The accompanying inscription reads, "The practitioner lies down on his back and pillows his head on his right arm. His left arm rests loosely. The left leg is extended straight, the right leg is bent. He holds his breath and circulates 24 mouthfuls of energy. This will cure nocturnal emissions. Daoist techniques. Fasting the mind. Xin Chai. Although Master Zhuang did not necessarily approve of them, some of the techniques for stilling the senses and circulating the energy described in the Zhuangzi, which ostensibly had a basis in actual yogic practice, were perpetuated and practiced in succeeding centuries. Prominent among them is Master Zhuang's method for fasting the mind, later also known as the method of listening to one's breath, which derives from Chapter 4. Listen not with your ears, but with your mind. Listen not with your mind, but with your primordial qi. The ears are limited to listening. The mind is limited to tallying. The primordial qi, however, awaits things emptily. It is only through the Tao that one can gather emptiness, and emptiness is the fasting of the mind. Observe that this yogic quotation is, ironically, almost perversely placed in the mouth of Confucius. Later adepts understood this method to mean listening to one's own breathing as follows. When one begins, one is supposed to listen only with the roots of the ears, not with consciousness. Nor should one concentrate on the air passing through the sinuses or collecting in the thoracic cavities. Instead, one should only be aware of the inhalations and exhalations themselves. As for the speed of one's breathing, its depth and its amount, one should allow these qualities to vary effortlessly and naturally instead of striving to control them. In this manner, one will gradually become adept to the point that spirit and qi become unified. At that point, all distracting thought will have vanished and one will become completely oblivious of the phenomenal world. When this stage is reached, one has entered the realm of fasting the mind, having realized the emptying of the mind of desire and the purification of the spirit. It is obvious that this elaborate description goes beyond what was in the Zhuangzi itself, so that there either was a tradition of oral exegesis accompanying the text, or subsequent yogic practices were grafted onto the text by way of elaboration. Sitting in oblivion. In later Taoism, a technical term used to describe a state of deep trance or intense absorption, the notion of zuo wang, occurs first in the Zhuangzi, with the classical passage found in Chapter 6, I smash up my limbs and body, drive out perception and intellect, cast off form, do away with understanding, and make myself identical with the great thoroughfare. The idea here, as well as in the later tradition, is a mental state of complete unknowing that involves a loss of personal identity and self and is the utter immersion in the non-being of the universe. Guo Xiang interprets the state as a twofold oblivion that begins with forgetting all outer manifestations, then moves on to the forgetfulness of the inner truth of things, the underlying ground that causes the manifestations. He sees it as a way of attaining his ideal state of oneness, realized by going along with all the changes of the universe. The Tong commentator Cheng Xuanying, representative of the philosophy of twofold mystery, Chong Xuan, further linked this twofold scheme of Guo Xiang's with Jizang's theory of two truths and developed a Madhyamaka-like pattern of twofold forgetfulness, Jian Wang. This, in turn, was taken up by the 12th patriarch of Shangqing, Sima Chengzhen, 647 to 735, who developed the method of sitting in oblivion into a 7-stage process of attaining the Tao, writing a treatise known as Zuo Wang Lun. Other yogic techniques described in the Zhuangzi that almost certainly reflect actual hygienic practices of old are the bear strides and bird stretches of Chapter 15, which can be considered the forerunner of the Han Dynasty Dao Yin Tu, gymnastics chart, and Hua Tuo's famous 5 animals exercises, although again the author of this chapter is wryly critical of such practices. Another set of practices that anticipates Taoist returns to the chaotic state of primordiality are the arts of Mr. Hundun, mentioned in Chapter 22 and directly related to the Hundun myth in Chapter 7. In addition, it should be noted that there is a radical difference between the abstract, empty qi of the Zhuangzi and that of Mencius's concrete, physical, expansive qi described in roughly the same period. Yuan drama. A different form of the Zhuangzi's practical impact is its adaptation in Chinese theater plays. Most prominently, Zhuangzhou's Butterfly Dream, which was probably the favorite passage of most readers of the Zhuangzi, is the subject of a Yuan drama entitled Zhuangzhou Mengdiye. Zhuangzi Dreams of the Butterfly, written by Shi Zhang, circa 1279. In the play, Zhuangzi is a celestial Daoist god with the title Perfected Lord of Southern Florescence and Ultimate Virtue, residing in the jade capital of highest clarity. Once he smiled when seeing golden lads and jade maidens holding banners, pennants, and bejeweled umbrellas, which infuriated the Jade Emperor, who banished him to Earth as a member of the Zhuang family. On Earth, Zhuang lives a besotted life, chasing after women and showing himself to be fond of drink. Hearing that Hangzhou is a romantic place, he goes there on an excursion, but the star Venus transforms itself into an old man who comes before Zhuangzi to enlighten him. The old man makes him drunk 3 times and causes him to have 3 dreams, in which he sees a large butterfly that instructs him to refine the pills of immortality. After concocting the elixir, Zhuangzi suddenly realizes that he is a god from a Daoist heaven who is banished to earth, and that he should complete his spiritual progress and pay court to the prime. Otherwise, he now understands, if he ever again has mortal thoughts, he will be banished still further down and eternally stray from the Tao of the immortals. In its strictures against wine, women, and wealth, the drama is manifestly influenced by the Guanzhen, complete perfection school, who emphasized strict monastic discipline. The above are but a few examples of the disparate interpretations and amplifications that have been applied to the Zhuangzi by Daoist adepts during the past 2 millennia. One may object that to varying degrees they have distorted the true intent of Master Zhuang and his immediate followers. On the other hand, one cannot deny that their veneration of the text is genuine and that it has played a vital role in the evolving tradition of Daoist religion and thought. To summarize, the Zhuangzi has had an overwhelming literary, philosophical, and religious influence upon writers, thinkers, and practitioners of various persuasions. It is one of the oldest and most pervasive Daoist documents. Its significance and impact, not only in Taoism but also in Chinese culture in general, is all the more remarkable in light of the fact that the text is quite anti-Confucian. Although there are chapters, such as those with the word heaven in their titles, which seem to constitute an unsuccessful attempt to subvert the Zhuangzi to a Confucian agenda, Confucius and his school of thought are ridiculed, with a high degree of effectiveness, on many occasions throughout the text. It is probable that the Zhuangzi survived in spite of its anti-orthodoxy because of its sheer wit and charm. Although Confucius and his followers are frequently made to appear like fools in the Zhuangzi, the satire is executed with such humor and good grace that even the most staid Confucians must have smiled, at least inwardly, when they read it. Above all, the Zhuangzi succeeded because it represented a necessary countercultural foil or relief to the solemnity and seriousness of the host of other political thinkers who have crowded the pages of the history of Chinese thought, particularly in its formative stage during the Warring States period.